All right, thank you, Dave. It's called The Most In-Depth Comprehensive Biography of Stephen Harper to Date, and it's out right in the middle of this long election campaign and right before the leaders' debate tonight. A lot has been written about Prime Minister Harper as a leader, but not a lot is written about how Stephen Harper became who he is and how he embraced his politics. The book is simply called Stephen Harper. It's written by a man who has covered Harper in Parliament for years. John Ibbitson joining us this morning to talk about his new biography. John, by the way, writer-at-large with the Globe and Mail newspaper, long-form columns. I just clarified what writer-at-large means. I guess right off the get-go, why? Why did you decide to go after this subject?
Well, I didn't know him very well.
Yeah.
And I've been covering him, since the days of the Canadian Alliance. And he's a deeply polarizing figure. People either think, he's Stephen Harper's Satan or Stephen Harper walks on water. I was just curious to know about Stephen Harper, the man, who he was, where he came from, what shaped him, the forces that made him the kind of person that he'd become. Because he is a major prime minister. He has reshaped the country. He's the first truly conservative prime minister this country's ever had. And I thought, everyone is yelling at him one way or another. I just want to step back, spend a couple of years talking to people and getting a sense of who the guy is.
Guy grew up in suburban Toronto, but from what I've been reading and taking from your book, that when he moved west, dropped out of school, out of the University of Toronto, Trinity College, moved to Edmonton, worked in an office, just like an office job. But you're saying his move to the west was pivotal in kind of figuring out who he is.
And dropping out was. I mean, this was this smartest kid in his class, nothing but straight A's, oldest son, boomer kid. He's going to go out to university. He's going to make good. Mom and dad's pride and joy. Lasts 2 weeks. I say in the book, he met the Laurentian elite, as I call them, the sons and daughters of the people who ran the country in Toronto and Ottawa, Montreal, who sent their kids to Trinity College. He fled from them. His father was furious, of course, and he called a friend of his and said, don't know what to do with my son. So he said, well, I got a job out west. So they flew him out to Edmonton. He was there for 3 years. Imagine someone as smart as Stephen Harper spending 3 years in a mailroom.
In a regular office job.
In a regular office job, first in Edmonton, then in Calgary, because he was determined that he was going to do it on his own terms. And until he figured out what it was he wanted to do, that's what he would end up. It was the most formative thing that happened to him in his life.
He's Prime Minister now, running obviously, of course, to get re-elected again. He took a couple cracks at politics and then dropped back a little bit, like he was in Ottawa as a parliamentary assistant, then he wasn't, and then he was back, and then he wasn't. Why do you think he was doing all this stuff to kind of figure out himself?
And I think it might have been the most interesting thing I learned about him. He absolutely cannot take direction. Whether it's from high school teachers, university professors, Preston Manning, Jim Hawkes, his old boss, he cannot take orders. And it should have ruined him. You and I, we have to take orders. Every now and then you just got to go. It's all right, that's what you want me to do. Not him. He wouldn't do it. He said to a friend of his, I just can't stand being told what to do. And so he kept quitting, kept running away. It should have ruined him. It should have ruined him. But his strength of will was such that he not only did it not ruin him, he found a job where nobody gets to tell you what to do. He became Prime Minister of Canada.
And he's been Prime Minister for 10 years now. Why do you think a person with that type of personality has been able to stay in power for so long?
It's a good question, because he's as I say in the book, no one more temperamentally unsuited to being Prime Minister has ever been a Prime Minister. This is a deeply introverted man. He has a small circle of friends and family. He likes routine. He hates crowds. He hates strangers. But he figured that only he could unite the conservative movement, and he was right. And only he could lead it to power, and he was right. And he's been doing it for a decade now. I think in the book, as I say, he's done a decent job. He's done more good than harm as Prime Minister, though the book is not uncritical, where I think he has, he warrants criticism. But he is ultimately the man who's made Canada a more conservative nation than it was when he took office, and that's a major achievement, one way or another.
You chatted with a whole bunch of people to get some research and information for your book. You did not chat with Stephen Harper. If you could ask him, say, one question, what do you think it would be?
So why did you quit Trinity College? Am I right? Because to me that was the most formative thing. I'm pretty sure that I am right. But for me, we all are who we are because of what happened to us when we were young. So the first half of the book deals with the years before he became Prime Minister. But you know what? That's a great question, Ted, because apart from that, I can't think of a question I would ask him. Partly because I did get, I talked to his family, his brother, talked to friends, talked to associates who'd worked with him. And I think at the end, most of my questions were answered.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, switching gears, leaders debate tonight coming up. The economy, and you argued in the book that the Conservatives have owned the economy up to now. Are you expecting Harper to dominate tonight because of that? Or?
Well, look, he has to. He's still tied. It's not over for the Conservatives by any means, but they have not broken out. We've had all of August and half of September, and it's still a three-way tie. I think Harper's going to want to use tonight as a chance to take ownership of the economy as an issue, to make it the issue of the campaign, and to make it clear to voters that only he can be trusted on it. That said, it is a three-way tie, and Thomas Mulcair and Justin Trudeau are going to be trying to do exactly the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. John Ibbitson, writer-at-large of the Globe and Mail newspaper, has just published a book. It's called Stephen Harper. It's a biography. Interesting read. First half of the book sets up who he is and how he became who he is politically. Second half of the book is time and power. Thank you so much for coming in.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
Nice to meet you too, John.